Good morning and welcome to the NBA Daily for December 16th, 2024. Coming up, Klay went back to the Bay and Anthony Slater was there, so we got him on to talk a little bit of Warriors, especially after the Dennis Schröder trade. And we've got Law Murray, who watched LeBron come back from that foot injury, and we're going to talk to him about Kawhi Leonard's return. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Zena. Good morning, Anthony, or should I say good night? Calling us from Chase Center after an insane game, Anthony. That makes no sense. 48 combined threes. The score at halftime was 81-74. Did they just decide, hey, it's NBA Cup weekend. We're not going to play defense. We're just going to get the shots up and get home.
Well, the crazy thing is the Warriors were coming off 91-90 game in Houston, right? That was it. That was real NBA Cup defense. Maybe this was just the disappointment of actually not being in the real Cup. But honestly, I didn't think they were horrible defensively. I mean, even talking to Steve Kerr and some of the players postgame, Luka was unbelievable. And beyond that, all the shooters are hitting shots on both sides, by the way. I mean, you mentioned it, but 27 made threes for the Warriors in the loss. That's an NBA record for a team that lost. 18 was their franchise record in the first half, and they're down 7 at halftime. So just hit a bunch of shots. I think the Warriors leaned more offensive with their lineups, right? They're starting Buddy Hield. They didn't start Draymond Green, and they got off to a really bad start in the first and third quarters. Maybe that's criticizable, right? I mean, part of the reason they were poor defensively is their best defensive player on their team is coming off the bench all of a sudden. So, again, I think I would probably just credit mostly really the shot making. It wasn't a lazy all-star game type atmosphere out there. It was just a lot of guys making shots.
Yeah, final score 143-133. I do feel like this game overcorrected for all of the defense that you saw in Houston with the Warriors, what you saw at NBA Cup weekend even. But now I'm looking at this team, speaking of overcorrecting, and I'm looking at the way that Andrew Wiggins played, and I'm looking at the way that Jonathan Kuminga played, who both I think were really phenomenal tonight. And now you've got this Dennis Schröder trade that's come in. And now you're looking at what are the Warriors going to do in terms of incorporating Dennis Schröder into this mix. From what you've been hearing, even just the fact that people expected him to be with the team already today, but I believe he's coming in on Monday. What are you hearing about the way he's going to be incorporated into the Warriors mix and starting lineup?
They're talking pick and roll, the age-old Warriors question. But
everybody but Steph gets to do pick and roll.
Steve Kerr is saying he wants them to run more pick and roll. I mean, Steve Kerr had a stat pregame when he was talking about it that they were dead last in pick and roll efficiency over the last 10 games, and they were the worst offense in basketball. I mean, it's crazy because, again, the game that we're talking about this off, they just gave up 143 points. But his point pregame before that happened was they feel confident that they are a top 5 defense. A third of the way through the season, they have this kind of defensive backbone, but they need to at least be like a league average offense. And he said this trade is about juicing up the offense and getting Steph Curry, an extra pick and roll ball handler out there to play next to him. Steve Kerr wouldn't go fully committed that Dennis Schröder is going to be the starting 2 guard on Thursday in Memphis necessarily, but it's clear that's the plan. He said he thought he would be a perfect fit next to him. I chatted a little bit with Draymond postgame. He seemed to kind of think Dennis Schröder probably going to end up being the starting 2 guard. He's averaging 18 a game. He's hitting 38% of threes right now. They are saying that they're going to allow him to play like Dennis Schröder. And they're not going to say, hey, come in and, try to do a lot of the off-ball movement stuff. Steve Kerr actually compared it to Chris Paul last year, saying if you look last year, they let Chris Paul run a lot of pick and roll. They were 7th in offense last year. Defense was the problem. His point was, we've corrected the defense. We're bringing in a pick and roll ball handler. We need him to run those pick and rolls, which I think will help Kuminga and will help other guys too.
But also, let's not forget, Dennis Schröder, he can guard. This is not a guy who is just a turnstile. I mean, he can guard. We've seen him do it. For the Lakers, he was their point of attack guy, for a little bit. And I think that's one of the secrets to being able to move him into the starting lineup is that there's maybe not that much of a drop-off defensively, and you're going to get such a higher floor on the offensive end. And then what I envision is when Steph's not on the court, man, this is where they've fallen apart. And they don't have that number 2 guy yet. You could see like Kuminga kind of showing flashes, but now they've got a couple of guys who can, if Wiggins can keep scoring, if Kuminga can keep scoring, and now you add Schröder to that, when Steph's sitting, their offense won't die.
He might be their number 2. You mentioned it, but like this is about their starting shooting guard spot. When they were in Hawaii for training camp, it was this like 3-man competition. It felt very competitive. It was the Anthony Melton, the offseason signing, who fit perfectly and played 6 games for the Warriors and seemed like, like they had kind of completed their starting lineup from a two-way perspective, as you mentioned. Obviously tears his ACL, which in a lot of ways sent the Warriors into this little mini spiral. Yeah. And then Brandon Podziemski was the young upstart who was like, I think for the future, they wanted him to grab hold of that starting spot. He's just having a bad season. He's shooting 38% overall. It's like 4th worst in the league among like volume shooters, 25% from 3. He was bad in his 16 minutes tonight. You guys probably saw the low light.
Embarrassing play.
Yeah. That was kind of like the low light of the game. And like Steve Kerr was talking to him post game, arm around him, like, like we've seen it, right? Draymond's had the 5-minute speech about Podziemski on the podium. Kerr ripped him after a Denver loss. Like his second season has not gained any traction. When Melton went out from injury, they tried to give him that starting spot. And part of the reason they made this trade as soon as they did was number 1, because Brooklyn gave them Dennis Schroeder for not that much. Because I think Brooklyn needs to lose games. I think that was the appeal to Brooklyn. Like, get him off the roster. He's winning too much.
He's too good, actually. Right.
Yeah. Which is, the Warriors are fortunate that was a situation. But, Buddy Hield was the 3rd guy in that 3-man competition. And Buddy Hield's actually been starting ahead of Podziemski lately. But Buddy Hield, I think they view as kind of the bench shooter scorer, not the starter. And I think that's what paved the way. The fact that 3-man competition really kind of whittled down, especially the Podziemski struggles. And now you see Schröder, and you mentioned it. I think he's going to be like a 30-minute per night guy. He probably will be their 2nd leading scorer, which is crazy.
Yeah. And he needs, I think, the 30 minutes to be able to show up in the way that he has in Brooklyn, putting up serious numbers and also being a good defender. The interesting part about this is that, yes, you add Dennis Schröder into the mix, put him in that 2-guard position, and that slots really nicely, but it still doesn't necessarily answer the lineup just turnstile of, as Dave mentioned, but the turnstile of the lineups with the Warriors, particularly when it comes to wanting to play small ball or wanting to play big. Even tonight with Kevon Looney at the center position, or going up against the Mavs, Kevon Looney starts at center. Draymond comes off the bench. Draymond becomes a splash brother. Like 5 of 9, I think it was from 3. It was absolutely crazy. The shots that he was putting up. Now you still have to wonder, is he going to continue to come off the bench? Is this going to be opponent dependent? Even with a Schröder in the 2 spot, great. But that center spot is still up for grabs.
Is it only until they move Kuminga? I think that's what I keep thinking is, are they trying to juice that value? Zena, like when I'm looking at it, it's like,
I think some people are viewing it too much as like this is fully to showcase them because they're 100% going to trade him. Like, no, they need information on him because the league needs information on him. Mm-hmm. Rivals do, but they also do. Kuminga needs to know about himself. Like, they've waited too long to find out who he is in the league. And this isn't just about, like I said, showcasing him. If he grabs hold of this and he matters more than anything they can get on the market, then like they need him to blossom.
They'll extend him.
So, but yeah, we know the log jam in the front court and the lack of fit between he and Draymond. That I think at the end of the day, it's going to be Kuminga at the 4, Draymond at the 5, Wiggins at the 3. Like, that's where they're at their best. But, they're kind of playing this dance where they're trying to keep Draymond's body intact, right? He's already dealt with some health stuff lately, and you don't want to overuse him at the center spot. So it kind of makes sense to maximize Kuminga's minutes to have Draymond come off the bench. That's what they've said. But then you watch a game like tonight, and it's like, man, you're getting battered defensively out of the gate, and Draymond's over there on the bench. So that's where it's this weird tug of war, but that's their front court issue. I think they've kind of solved their back court issue. Dave, you seem like you were alluding to it, but the vibe out there is maybe they're not done trade-wise. And while I agree with that, I could see them being active come deadline. I can tell you they're not trying to hunt down Jimmy Butler in the next couple of weeks. From my understanding, Mike Dunleavy in this front office, now that they have Schröder in tow, want to see what this team looks like over the next 6 weeks or so before they decide what is or isn't needed, or if this team is even going anywhere before they make a potentially huge move.
And that's one thing about this front office that's been very apparent is that everything that they've done has been so tactical and calculated. Like they're not making, impulse moves. They're making a move and then evaluating. They're making a move, then evaluating, or they're not making a move and evaluating. You saw Draymond Green say that over the summer, coming back from, the offseason, saying how important it was in the free agency during the summer that the Warriors didn't just make a move that could impact them 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And so I definitely am. It's been interesting to watch Mike Dunleavy come into this role for the Warriors front office and just be incredibly measured in the moves that he's making.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's been patient. It's been kind of rearranging their financial situation. I think they're in a significantly better, more flexible financial spot than they were a couple of years ago. Post pool extension, you didn't know where the Klay money was going to go, the Chris Paul contract, all that. They've repositioned themselves where, they can stair step themselves to a lot of different deals. They still have all their first round picks because they didn't spend them this summer because the Markkanen and Paul George trade didn't go down. They got Schröder without having to use a first round pick, which I think was very important. And
can still aggregate him in a trade if it doesn't work out.
Yep. Now they're hard capped at the first apron, which makes stuff a little bit complicated. But yeah, like you said, I mean, that's like the entire league is basically handcuffed in a sense with this apron stuff. But that stuff's too complicated to discuss in detail.
I mean, it's at least I'd rather look at it and read about it than hear about it necessarily. Just because once you get to the second apron, it does get convoluted. Go and read him over at The Athletic. Anthony Slater, our man on the Warriors, the Kings. I mean, just the league. All right, guys, stick around after the break. We got Law Murray, who was in the house for LeBron's return, and we're going to try to get him to give us a target date for Kawhi Leonard's comeback. Well, LeBron came back last night, so we had to get someone who was in the building. Jovan was unavailable, and apparently he was just sitting there with Law Murray, who said he would step up. So we got Law Murray, who was in the house for LeBron's return. How did he look coming back from the foot issue?
I thought that he looked fantastic when it mattered, which was as soon as the game started. I mean, he had a sequence where he just it was early in the game, and I feel like he had a bucket, came down with a chase down block of Desmond Bane, and then Rui Hachimura got out in a fast break, and he didn't finish it, but LeBron tipped it in, and that forced a timeout. That bucket, by the way, it was a dunk. It was LeBron going hard, and it's I had to recall what happened, but that sequence right there, it's it gave the Lakers energy, because obviously energy's been a big thing missing. It's not a great sign that you need that energy from a dude who's literally turning 40 at the
in
end
a couple
of the month.
weeks, man.
Yeah. We're how is it already mid-December? But that's you get this, man. Wins don't come in the mail. You gotta. It's hard to win in the NBA. As cliche as that is, if you actually see how much effort it takes to get in and out of these games, especially against good teams, especially when you're in a rut like the Lakers have been, then that jolt is significant. It does matter. The Lakers never trailed tonight, and that's, again, saying a lot. The Grizzlies, I think, won 9 out of the last 10 or something like that coming in.
Yeah.
That's what he looked like overall. Yeah. LeBron had a pretty pedestrian game. He turned the ball over. He didn't dominate the game with his scoring. But you know who did? Anthony Davis. And so when you have the big plays LeBron made on both ends of the floor in transition in the half court, and then you have Anthony actually imposing his will on a game the way that he can at a peak level, that's the Lakers needed that. It's all they needed every bit of it to hold on tonight.
Yeah. I thought they needed Austin Reeves too. Yeah. He was making some important plays down the stretch. And he just settles them more offensively when you have that extra firepower. They're now I believe 12-7 with Austin Reeves back in the lineup, which is huge. What do you make, Law, of LeBron missing that time and kind of taking that leave of absence, if you will, and coming back and like that whole saga, because everybody was like, oh, Bron is about to retire. You know, it's about to be over. Obviously, that wasn't going to happen.
Ask for a trade to go play with Steph.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You know, that's the news cycle that will naturally happen with LeBron James. But what did you make of that absence?
I thought it was much ado about nothing. Like, I'm old enough to remember when LeBron had to take a lot of time off his first year after leaving the Miami Heat in Cleveland, right? That Cavaliers team was off to a pretty, shaky start because, they had always played shaky basketball since LeBron left the first time. And LeBron comes back and he was rejuvenated. And again, LeBron actually needed, there was medical, right? So, of course, the communication and messaging was murky, which might have been on purpose or intentional. There's always some extra drama going on with the Lakers that they obviously low-key love because it's a distraction, to how they might be playing or whatever else you could talk about. Like if they could have just said, hey, LeBron's taking a week off. We've had conversations and go from there. Instead, it's like, I don't know when LeBron's coming back. I don't know where he is. Like he's Ted Lasso or somebody in the middle of a damn trippy episode. So instead, you get LeBron coming back and it's like, yeah, he's turning 40 in a couple of weeks. He needed some time off to get himself together physically, mentally, whatever. Like he had to do Christmas shopping, whatever it was. The point is he's back. And guess what? He might need some more time at some point, like at the end of January or after the trade deadline or right around All-Star after he gets announced that he'll start in that game and, he's going to maximize that time in the middle of February. I don't know. Just be prepared for it. Like the Lakers need the best version of him to do anything. And they needed it tonight. Like him getting a week off led to a win tonight. Let's just put it that way.
Against a good team. I mean, the Grizzlies have been, the best offense in basketball. Like you mentioned, they've been on this run here recently. And the Lakers, on the other hand, have been scuffling. I mean, to put it
the
nicely,
highest scoring at least.
Yeah. So to put it, fairly to the Lakers, they've been struggling, and this is kind of a big win for them to regain their footing. What do you think about their rotation, Law? You cover the entire league, and I just want to make sure I point that out. I mean, you actually watch as much basketball as anybody I know that covers the league. So what do you think about where their rotation is right now, and what sort of gaps should they be looking to fill?
You talking about Max Christie,
the Lakers,
yeah. Lakers,
yeah. I think Max Christie starting tonight was a big sign of progress for what the Lakers want to be. Max, you look at his box score, it doesn't jump out. If you look at his impact, he gave Ja Morant hell.
Yeah.
That was his assignment. Ja didn't make a single basket inside the 3-point line in the first half. That was huge. It's about establishing what kind of game you're going to play. And Max is a guy who he's not the same player as he was when he came out of school. He's gotten stronger. He's got more experience. He's gone through a coaching exchange. He's signed multiple contracts. His attention to certain things has taken the steps that it needs to take for a player who's been in the league. He's still a young developing player, but obviously he's not a rookie anymore. And he completes that starting lineup as of right now. Like Austin's their point guard. LeBron is a guy that they play through, but they're not playing through him as much as they are playing through Anthony. And Rui's out there to make things happen. So Max is there to make shots and to defend his ass off. And he did that. He did his job to begin this game. And you see the Lakers didn't play a single one of their reserves 20 minutes tonight. Not D'Angelo Russell, not Gabe Vincent, who got some starts, not Dalton Knecht, who was an option to start, not Cam Reddish, who somehow always is relevant to the Lakers rotation, no matter what else is going on.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
Like my man Cam Reddish, that dude is
he's getting every chance in the world. I appreciate that. Right. Give him a shot.
And he made a difference tonight. He made a difference Sunday night in this game. Like, why? Because, and this is the same thing for Max Christie. If you can make a shot, run a little bit, jump a little bit, and just be competitive defensively at the wing position, you will have relevance to a coaching staff, period. Right. As long as you don't do dumb stuff and lose that trust, you're going to be relevant. That Max Christie earned, some rope tonight. And I would argue that Cam Reddish did too. And that's the Lakers rotation. They need guys to play hard and to be assignment sound. Everything else you leave up to guys like AD and LeBron for the most part.
Still feels like, December 15 now, right? Teams are going to start talking about trades. And so we know the Lakers are going to be one of those teams that's constantly calling, seeing who's available, what upgrades they can make, et cetera, et cetera. Another team that I'm interested in, at least when it comes to the trade deadline, is the LA Clippers. Let's go to Inglewood for a second. They've lost their last 3 games, but in general, they got off to a start that we sort of talked about a couple weeks ago in terms of beating the outside noise and expectations. How does it look now with Kawhi Leonard, quote unquote, around the corner? If that's the way to describe Kawhi, is he around the corner? Can they expect him to come back? Like, what's the vibes in LA on the Clippers side now?
I think big picture, things are looking pretty nice. They're safely over 500. They played well enough to be able to take and absorb this poor stretch of play that they've had for almost 2 weeks now. Kawhi coming back to practice in a limited capacity, being on the floor, getting his hair done, like all that stuff matters. You know what I mean? Like this is everything for them. This isn't. That stuff matters, man.
I know.
He ain't messing around with the box flats no more. Like he's actually looking like he is planning on playing basketball games, and that's huge. This isn't last year's team where that team was on a 66 win pace for 41 games. Do the math, that's half the season, and guys were still tripping as if to say like, it's 10 different guys doing their own thing. So they need Kawhi because they need him, but they also need to start the clock on several things. You got to get Kawhi on the floor so that Kawhi can go through his ramp up in NBA games, as we saw with Joel Embiid, Chris Middleton, and some of these other dudes who have delayed their start of their season. They're going to
takes a little bit.
All NBA. You're not going to get all NBA Kawhi in his first week back. Here's why that's relevant. The Clippers are always open for business. There's not a single season that Lawrence Frank has been in charge of the front office that they have not completed a trade in between October and the February deadline. And I would expect that to be no different. But for them to fully evaluate what they need and how they are going to go about pursuing what they need to see Kawhi play with these guys. They need to see who stays in the rotation, who's out the rotation. He's going to make the guys who have been doing way too much right now better and more efficient. And then that's how you kind of determine, okay, like, how do we proceed? So that's the most interesting thing to me. It's the domino effect of a guy who's capable of being a star player, but you have to take the steps, especially with a guy in Kawhi who is susceptible to setbacks. You have to take the steps, and you're going to probably need more time to do that than to say do what Golden State did and complete a deal just because guys are available immediately.
Yeah. I know we got to get you out of here because it's late, but can you give us a target for Kawhi's return? Are we talking, mid-January? Is it going to get out to February? Just go with your gut. I'm not asking you to report. I'm just saying what is Law feeling about it?
Your hunch.
Yeah. I feel like he wants to get back on the floor before the end of December. Like I said, he is back in a limited capacity and a good time in the Clipper schedule. They were the only team in the league, I believe, that went the entire month of November without a single game where they had more than a day of rest. And what? I think they benefited from that. I feel like the Clippers played well and got through those games. They won 10 of those games. And so now with some time off, you're starting to see the effects of complacency, not playing sharp basketball. Guys are getting hurt. Derek Jones Jr. is out. Terrence Mann is out. They had to play their first games without James Harden. They are wasting a roster spot on PJ Tucker right now, who's not even with the team. There's some attrition there. So I feel like Kawhi is motivated to get back on the floor as soon as the team feels like he's ready. There's steps to it. He hasn't taken contact yet. That progression hasn't happened. So I don't think this week is happening. But I would target that Warriors game on the 27th right after Christmas, or it'll be interesting to see if he's on the road trip to New Orleans and San Antonio to end the calendar year.
Christmas, the unofficial start of the season, usually, right?
Hey, you got to, the stars come out for Christmas. That's Law Murray. Go and read them at The Athletic. And that's the end of our show. For Es Baraheni, for Zena Keita, for Anthony Slater, for Law Murray. And we're going to give a shout out to Jovan Buha, who's also working really hard. And we're going to get him on later on in the week.
He's working.
That's right. He's working hard.
Grinding.
Yeah. I'm Dave DuFour, and this has been the NBA Daily. Thanks for waking up with us.